Hi, and welcome to Represent NYC on the Manhattan Neighborhood Network. My name is Christopher Marte. I'm the council member of District 1, which represents two neighborhoods that we'll be talking a lot about today, both Chinatown and Lower East Side. And so I am here with the two co-chairs of the Chinatown Working Group, Zishun Ning and Briar Winters. How are you guys doing?
Great, nice to be here.
Good. Good. Thank you for having us.
Awesome. So today we'll be talking about a community-based rezoning policy specifically to these neighborhoods, Lower East Side and Chinatown, called the Chinatown Working Group Plan. So I'll start off with Zisha. What is the Chinatown Working Group Plan?
So Chinatown Working Group Plan is a neighborhood-based, community-led rezoning plan that will set protection against luxury high-rises and real estate speculation to protect the neighborhood from these kind of big developments that will come in, put in thousands of market rate units, drive up the rents and the real estate taxes, and raise the price and of the area, and displace the low-income families and the small businesses. So these plans came up with at one point more than 60 organizations in the Chinatown and the Lower East Side. To say that, when the white middle class area of East Village get the similar protections like this back in 2008, that our neighborhoods should have the equal protection. Otherwise, if one part of the neighborhood, like the East Village, gets protected and the rest of the neighborhood was left without protection, then all these luxury developments will go down to our neighborhood, as we have seen all these years that without the protection, what happened. We have the 80-story Excel Tower being built right next to Manhattan Bridge. And now 4 more of these similar scales, luxury high-rises being proposed. And also we have seen small business shut down and a lot of eviction cases, and the workers also lose their jobs. So this plan, among other things, will propose a high restriction of the whole area as a way to stop the motive of this real estate speculation, and also require that truly affordable housing being built that reflects the income level of our neighborhood, and also that if any new developments on the public land, it should be 100% low-income housing. So with these measures that, we say that we are not just protecting one neighborhood or one street, but also the whole Chinatown and the Lower East Side, the areas that the diverse community that have been coming together, so that whether you live in the Two Bridges, the waterfront, public housing, or the core of Chinatown, we have the same interests and seeing our community not to be destroyed.
Thank you for that recap. Briar, sometimes zoning can seem abstract or seem too technical for the general public. How has the Chinatown Working Group overcome this obstacle and become really a tool for mobilization?
Yeah, that's a great question, because zoning is such a tricky thing, or it can seem tricky. I think one thing that we've been really successful at is helping people to understand how this is going to impact their lives, and it's not hard to find people who've been impacted by the situation that we're in right now in the neighborhood. We have so many small businesses closing. How I got into this originally was my own small business was displaced from our workspace. And so, each of us has all of these networks of people who are being impacted. And I really think that it's been very powerful to just talk to our neighbors, to stand, we've been standing on the street corner, doing petition signatures, we've gotten over 10,000 petition signatures in support. And I really think that it's those conversations with people, across the different parts of the neighborhood that's helped people to understand that there is something that we can do. We can fight back, sometimes you talk to people and they feel a bit discouraged. But it's been really, really inspiring to talk to people and see that there is this energy that they do want to fight back, and to be able to connect them with, other neighbors who are doing the same. I really do think those personal connections have been at the heart of what we're doing.
Thank you for sharing your personal experience. One of the stories that really highlighted a lot of this struggle was the 85 Bowery tenants. Zishan, can you please kind of give us a a general summary of what happened and how this rezoning plan is connected to that.
So regarding the 85 Bowery, the landlord of 85 Bowery also he bought 11 buildings along Bowery, all cash in 2013, around that time, and knowing full well that this area has no zoning protection, because Bowery, the corridor of Bowery was left out actually of the protection in the 2008 East Village rezoning. And that's also the area that the Chinatown Working Group plan intend to cover. So the landlord bought the building, right? Of course, he has no intention to be a good landlord. And after he bought the buildings, he started to the eviction process. And with the 85 Bowery, he intentionally at that time left the building into disrepair. Despite the fact that the tenant already sued the landlord in the HPD and actually got the judgment that the landlord should repair the building. But the landlord refused, right? While at the same time still have his case going on to evict the building, all the 85 Bowery tenants, along with the building next to it, the 83 Bowery. So the landlord used that excuse, actually work with the city agency to kick out the 85 Bowery tenants, all of them in the cold winter nights. With that excuse to say the building need repair. But the tenant know, very well that once you get kicked out, it's very hard to come back unless you fight. So they took a series of action, including 2 hunger strikes in front of one in front of the city hall, to demand that the then mayor Bill de Blasio to guarantee that they can go back home with a certain date. So that the struggle also highlights, right, like I said earlier, how the city, collude with the landlord, right? One, refusing to help the tenants to guarantee they can go back home, and 2, to encourage landlords like this coming in our neighborhood, without giving us the protection. So the tenants see very clearly that how the motive of the landlord, right? Even if without the zoning protection, then what happened long term? Right. So ultimately, with the community support, they were able to actually fight to go back, to their apartments. But they still continue to get involved with the community issue, get involved with passing, pushing to pass the Chinatown Working Group plan, because without the protection, the landlord will still have the mindset thinking that one day he can tear down the buildings, build tall, and make his property value go up, and all of that. So the tenants see that the connection there. So that's why now, they're still at the forefront of pushing this plan to pass.
That's amazing. Often community activists are fighting against rezonings, right? We saw it in Industry City. We see it in Inwood, really in all 5 boroughs. What makes the Chinatown Working Group plan something that people are actually fighting for?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of unique in terms of what's happening in the city right now. And we've been in touch with groups all over the city who are looking to do something similar. And, it's something to fight for. It's been designed by the community for the community. And so it's people here saying, what do we want our community to look like? What do we want in our neighborhood? Do we want to allow our neighbors to be displaced, by this collusion between the city government and big real estate? And it's our answer to that, and the answer is no. And, it's much easier to unite around something that, especially in these times, which are very dark, in a lot of ways. I mean, looking around the world, there's so much stuff going on, but to be able to have something that really honors the needs of our community, and to be able to look toward the future and to fight for a better future for all of us here, I think that's been inspiring to people all over the city, actually. And we hope to continue that, and we hope to continue networking and share what we've learned through this process with other people in other neighborhoods, because I think that it's the future, that we have some self-determination over our communities, our time, the places that we live and work. I think that's going to be crucial.
You said that the Chinatown Working Group plan is by the community for the community. Zishun, can you tell us who specifically in the community has created the Chinatown Working Group plan and has been advocating for it?
So when people talk about community here, right, what they usually mean, for different groups, right? One is to say, those who live here, then they just become like, oh, you live in this building, I don't live in this building, so I can't say much on what happened to you. Unfortunately, that kind of viewpoint being manipulated by some of the elected officials who try to help the big developers, right, and to try to divide the community. If you don't live here, or if you haven't lived here for certain years, then you have no say. But community actually is way bigger than just who live in certain place, right? Community is whoever has any connection, right, to this neighborhood, who contribute to this community. For example, the small business, right, and the workers who work in those business, they all create the wealth, right, of the neighborhood. They help this neighborhood grow. Or those who might be priced out, right, who might find it unaffordable to live here, but they still come back. They might have relatives, or artists, right, who come here, create art. Young people who find this place more affordable, and maybe have their different connections to the neighborhood. So when we talk about community, actually it's bigger. Whoever identify with the community, whoever wants to protect this community, identify with the value of it, and the people here, then they're part of the community, whether they live here for generations, or they just move here but already have a connection to it. So when we talk about the Chinatown working group plan, right, so it's more than just the tenant groups, right, or more than just one set of the groups. It includes like worker centers, labor unions, tenant associations, small businesses, and small proprietors, right? So a lot of them, we identify, the protection of a community as a common interest. So that's why, all these different groups, right, all come together to create this plan, and also implement this plan, to push for years for the city to pass it. So that's what it looks like, right, when we talk about a community, and it cut across the boundaries, right? That's why we also emphasize the importance, right, of Chinatown and the Lower East Side, because we are all facing the same problem, whether you live in the Two Bridges public housing or the private housing. So we identify what's more in common than our differences. And I think that's very important, when we talk about a community plan. That means like it's an inclusive plan for our community, rather than just one specific groups. So that's what set us different from the kind of some of the other pro developer plan, or the giving protection to just one part of the neighborhood in exclusion of the others.
Yeah, I think your description of inclusivity is really awesome. Not only what we typically seen in the history of organizing is using the word gentrifier to pit neighbor versus neighbor, right? New art studio versus old mom and pop shop. And I love the idea how, even though this is the Chinatown working group plan, it also includes Lower East Side, which is not protected. And when you look at a map of all of Lower Manhattan, Little Italy is protected, the East Village is protected, even the financial district and the seaport are protected. But the one area that's mostly a working class immigrant community is not protected. And so when we look at who is the city doing these rezonings for and adding these protections for, are not for the people who had built this community and who want to continue to welcome new immigrants to this community. So thank you for mentioning that, Zishun, because I think that's crucial, not just for Chinatown Working Group plan, but how we should view all rezonings throughout the 5 boroughs as we see kind of this plan, this citywide displacement plan happening, and the city orchestrating it and enforcing it. Talking about, in a wider lens and the city, how can the city's affordability crisis be addressed by a rezoning?
Yeah, just to start off, I mean, I think that something that has gotten lost in a lot of the conversations about affordability is displacement. There's all this talk about building affordable housing, whether or not you believe it's actually affordable, to most people is another story. But the upshot of so much of that building is the displacement of long-term residents, particularly those who are in rent-regulated housing. And so a plan like this, first and foremost, is trying to prevent that displacement, because if you just continue, charging forward with the building, what we have seen in our own communities is that people are displaced. And so you have to have those protections in place first, before we can talk about, and we can do it all at the same time. It's just that we have to protect people from displacement first. It's so crucial. Like the case of the Bowery tenants, for instance, that brings it back to that. There was no protection for them. And also, the thing is once we stop this cycle of speculation, which is the goal of the Chinatown Working Group plan, once we stop that cycle, a lot of the other issues that we see, what things that are displacing people, those are not going to be as serious of a concern. The speculation is driving all of it.
Thank you. Briar, you mentioned earlier that the Chinatown Working Group has been working with other groups throughout the city for their rezoning projects or their anti-development organizing. Can you elaborate a little bit more and give examples?
Yeah, we have members of our coalition that are coming from all parts of the city. We've worked with a lot of people who worked on the Sunset Park situation, Inwood, the South Bronx, and it's really inspiring to see people coming together and talking about these issues and trying to figure out how we can really come up with a people-led solution to this, because, like we mentioned before, so many of those rezonings have been city led and developer led, often a combination of those two things. And it's that approach has led to mass displacement, and we really need to, it can't be on just one community to fight this. We all have to be fighting where we are, but it's so important to exchange information, and it's so important to share our struggles and to really bring the fight together and make it into something really big. And we also, for instance, have been speaking with people in the Bay Area as well, through some of our Art Against Displacement. We had a show recently, art show in front of MoCA, and there were people there from the Bay Area. People all over the country are experiencing these situations. And so that's why it's so important to make it into a bigger fight.
Zishun, typically when outsiders or pro-development organizers look at this plan, they call it a NIMBY plan, a not in my backyard plan. Can you talk a little bit more about why this isn't a NIMBY plan?
I think first of all, there's a lot of this misinformation out there to say that now the displacement crisis is lack of supply for affordable housing. So you shouldn't limit the development. Instead, you should encourage more development, right? More tall towers, so that those developers, will, give you a little bit of affordable housing, right? But what this viewpoint, I think, mislead people is that they're addressing the consequence, not the cost. The cause of it, as Briar said earlier, is it's a cycle, of this real estate speculation, right? That's actually, as a result, destroy existing affordable housing. So with the previous administration, what they try to do is that, we're going to destroy your home, but at least we'll build a little bit of affordable housing. But first of all, of course, those so-called, affordable housing is, not affordable at all, right, to most of the community members. But second is that, that means that they will destroy, maybe 100 affordable housing and give you back 10. So, as a result, actually the displacement crisis escalates because a majority of people have to move out, and the net result is that those policies actually destroy more affordable housing, than they claim they create. So in order to stop that, actually the Chinatown Working Group plan, right? First of all, is to address the cycle, of real estate speculation, right? To stop, these costs, of the loss of affordable housing. And second, it actually guarantees more affordable housing. If developers really want to build affordable housing, truly affordable housing for the community, they will find no trouble actually building in, within the boundary of Chinatown Working Group plan. They'll be happy to, because this plan would mandate that more affordable housing and more truly affordable housing being built. So, we look forward, if there are any like good-hearted developers coming in to build affordable housing, we certainly welcome. So actually that's if those, who claim that they want to build more affordable housing, they should join us in the support this plan.
Last year, we had a really controversial rezoning in Lower Manhattan that's not too far away from Chinatown and the Lower East Side. It was the Soho NoHo and what I consider Chinatown upzoning. And we saw a lot of misinformation in the press, but we also saw a lot of coalition building in the community where we saw residents of Soho and Broadway join with organizers from the Chinatown Working Group plan to really push back on the rezoning. Briar or Zishun, can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I can start out with that. Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right, Chris. There was so much misinformation flying around, and really just people not looking at the reality, which is that, there are many, many rent stabilized and rent regulated tenants in that area. And those people deserve protection as well. They deserve to stay in their homes. We don't advocate for the displacement of anyone, and I think it's really important. Part of the work that we've done, especially connecting Chinatown and the Lower East Side, bringing people together across the neighborhood, living in even different types of housing, it's shown us that we are much, much stronger when we look for, as Zishun said, when we look for our common interests. So that has been something that we've really pursued in terms of building those relationships. And, another really important thing to note when we talk about that, and you mentioned the Soho NoHo and Chinatown, because a significant corner of what was proposed by the city is actually in Chinatown. And that was actually one of the areas in the city's plan that was slated for some of the largest developments in the whole rezoning. And there are many, many rent regulated tenants in that area who would stand to be displaced. And one connection that I think is really important to make, in terms of what Zishun was saying about who's part of our community, is that the connection to the fight to reopen Jingfong and the fight against the Chu family as these really predatory real estate developers. So the Chu family owns a lot of the buildings in that small area of Chinatown, that corner that's in the rezoning, and they would stand to make an enormous, enormous amount of money, since the area has been rezoned. And at the same time, the Chu family closed Jingfong during the pandemic, taking jobs away from so many of the workers who had been there for many years. These were all union jobs. So I think it's really important to see the connection between big real estate and the ripples that it has out into our community. It impacts small businesses, it impacts workers. And so, we really worked hard to join together with a lot of the tenants in Soho and NoHo and in that area of Chinatown, because we all saw that we had a common interest there, and that we can't afford to leave anyone behind, when it comes to these protections, because as soon as you do that, they'll jump right on that opportunity and everyone suffers.
Yeah, I love how you connected the dots with that. Zishun, another big rezoning that happened a few years ago was the rezoning to make the Chinatown Jail, which would be the largest jail, tallest jail in North America. Is there any connection between that and the Chinatown Working Group plan?
I think the Chinatown Working Group plan, right? The idea of it is to, cap the heights, right? To say that you shouldn't build, the tall building, right? The enormous, tall building, in the neighborhood. So, that's the idea, right? And in terms of the jail, right? The previous mayor came in to try to, ask for community support. And, one of the, groups that they approached was the Museum of Chinese in America. And as Briar said earlier, the connection with Jonathan Chu. because Jonathan Chu is actually the board co-chair, right, of that museum. And the city will try to looking for, some groups to support, this enormous jail plan, so that they can say that the community supported. So that's the role of MOCA. Actually, they accept the $35 million from Mayor de Blasio, in exchange, they support, this big jail to come up. So, the True Family and the MOCA, that's how they, say they support this plan. And then they exchange to say, yeah, the mayor, give them the right to build the tall towers too. And that's what the Soho NoHo plan comes in. So I think that's the connection, right? First, if the city want to build the luxury high rise, and then they work with these local big landlords, big developers who want to sell their community to benefit themselves. So they say, oh, I'll give you a jail, then I will also give you the opportunity to build luxury towers. So in the end, that's that's how they destroy the community, right? With the jail, to stop the foot traffic, to destroy small business around the area, and also to bring in luxury high rises, right? So that the low-income families and small business have to be displaced, and who benefit in the end is the big landlords and the big developers.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. And I want to thank both of you for not only the organizing work that you've been doing for years, but coming on today to represent NYC on Manhattan Neighborhood Network to talk about these issues and to show how everything is connected. But the root of the issue is the zoning. And if we change the zoning, then we can make sure that we get the protections that we need. We can decide what gets built and who's it for in our community. And I feel like this has to be an education that we spread out through the city. And I know with leaders like you leading the Chinatown Working Group plan, we can make that happen. Thank you guys. Can you guys just let the audience know how they can get involved and how they can connect with the Chinatown Working Group plan?
Yeah, sure. You can visit our website to learn more about the plan itself. We have some documents on there that kind of digest it into kind of portions that are easy to understand. And that is www.chinatownworkinggroup.com. You can also reach out to the Coalition to Protect Chinatown and the Lower East Side, which is peoplefirst@gmail.com. That's a great email to send a note to if you'd like to learn more.
Great. Well, thank you both for being on today and joining me at Represent NYC on Manhattan Neighborhood Network.